Okay, starting here into the 6th turn. And this is really the end of the game, the final turn. I've put the new mustered forces down, but it looks really bleak for the Muslim side. First of all, the Caliphate, the Fatimid Caliphate, is spread out. So they're going to have to spend cards to get themselves up to Jerusalem if that's their intention. Of course, Baldwin doesn't have a lot of troops consolidated either. But it's a long trip to get there, and these 1-point units are not terribly potent. Jerusalem's only got 2-point units, I think. A couple of leaders. And of course the fortifications. Aleppo, if it falls, the game ends in a Crusader victory. If it does not fall, the game will end in a Muslim victory. That's as far as I can see with it right now. Looking at the Muslim side, I'm beginning to wonder. First of all, they didn't give much. A little bit in Damascus up here. They took a new leader from the dead pool. They replaced the emir. That cost them 2 of their replacements, so they don't have many troops left. The idea of ransoming to get one of the, most specifically Zengi, back is just outside the pale, really. It means they'd give up a card, and they wouldn't get to use him this turn. He would come in next turn. So that's not terribly valuable. Oh, well, not at all. So I'm beginning to wonder if maybe the intention in the game is for the Muslims to kind of harass the Crusaders as they're crossing, as they come eastward through Anatolia, see if they can do some shadowing with Zengi's force. The problem I had, of course, was even what was basically what was there from Antioch was still strong enough because of the Crusaders. That first turn card that brought a couple Crusaders into play was still strong enough to really be a threat. So Zengi couldn't really operate against the Crusaders. He could also get whacked that way. Of course, he can replace his troops easier. The further back he is, the easier that is. But alright. After a string of siege cards failed to have any real effect, leaving the resistance factor the same, the Muslims attempted a relief attack, but the leader they had, who's now you can see in prison, could only command 3 units, so he couldn't really bring anything of any real force there. Largely, it was an attempt, throw that army away, hope to decrease the Crusader army enough that it could do something. They did 3 steps to it, which is significant, but the Crusaders destroyed the army, captured the leader, la la la. Something of an interesting situation was going on. The Crusaders didn't have any siege attack cards, so they were just throwing a card every turn hoping they'd get one. And meanwhile, the Muslims had almost nothing to do. They flung the remaining Seljuk forces into these relief attacks, but they had no chance of dislodging it. Well, the Seljuk army is destroyed, and now Aleppo has fallen finally, which to me it looks like it's over, but I'll play out the remaining cards. There's not a lot to do, but here's the interesting thing. Edessa's open, so the Crusaders can actually charge up and have a shot at taking that as well. We'll see how that goes. Interestingly enough, the Seljuks had a mercenaries card, which allowed them to place two units out of their dead pile into Edessa. See, the Crusaders did march forward. They tried to get this castle to surrender on the way through. It wouldn't. So I have to make a attrition roll, actually, affected by that. I have to make an attrition roll anyway because they ended up in an enemy place. They picked up some additional troops, though, the Edessan troops from Bura. Now, I thought the Seljuks had another card to play. This Mujahideen allows them to place 2 units belonging to any friendly Muslim power in any friendly controlled city or box within their controlled territory. And that's important because Edessa is not their controlled territory. that's still considered Christian at this point, even though the city's been taken. So that's 2 units they can't get that I was kind of counting on. I thought Edessa had no chance of falling. Right now, it's actually got a chance, depending on, there's still 3 Crusader cards, and I think the Crusaders have 1 attack card, which only reduces at 1 level. But some of the other cards may end up resulting in a draw that has a good effect. So if I can get that just a little lower, there's a chance. Alright, well, it's turned out Edessa fell. I got it down to a 3 resistance factor, got a decent roll. There's still another card left that I could have drawn for. Both players still have another card. The Muslims have to play one. Last turn they wasted their card playing a field fortification. They really have nothing they can do. Absolutely nothing. They have no troops on the board and no pieces they can move. As far as I'm concerned, this crusade was pretty much a success. You would almost expect a consolidation with maybe the rest of Edessa and Aleppo area kind of falling into place, maybe even Damascus. We might be talking about a high point that the Crusaders never actually reached. The question, of course, comes down to, well, is there any diplomacy with Egypt left? I've got nothing here. This has a +2 to the diplomacy. That's not going to move anything. I could come to a truce with Damascus, but why bother? They're barely able to defend themselves. So it's hard to tell what would happen in this kind of situation. Why is there a game turn limit, this, that, and the other? Those kind of things aren't absolutely clear to me. But it might be that the crusade is only going to stay on the field for 3 turns, no matter what. So it's possible Louis would leave, in which case things are a lot less impressive because Antioch, Tripoli, and Jerusalem do not have the force to really push for a crusade. I doubt that Manuel is going to help once the crusade's done. That was sort of I'm in favor of Conrad rather than... speaking of which, I forgot to add him to the pool and to the board. So that would have been an extra couple of strength points in the combats there. Not that they needed it. Anyway, no reason to play out those actual cards. They're not going to do a damn thing. But definitely see this as a tremendous Crusader victory. I wouldn't be shocked if some of these Crusaders would stay behind, especially with the gain of territories like Aleppo and Damascus. There's now new areas to absorb. Edessa, well, some of the nobility, most of the nobility of Edessa probably is still around, and you'd be restoring them, although there's probably some plums to take there. The question, of course, of, well, does the crusade... would people stick around to help against the Fatimids? What's going on there? That's kind of... It's tough to say, because obviously the First Crusade, for example, had it just kind of fizzled out, people would have mostly gone home. But a significant number stayed there to settle in the area. I don't think the Second Crusade is really of that settling nature in the same way. But, if you gained these major riches, Aleppo, Damascus, well, that might change the whole flavor of things significantly. Some of them might see, because people were still hawking everything they owned in order to go on these crusades. Anyway, I think it all started with those first 2 Crusader pieces that got placed early. I think they really stiffened the defenses. The Seljuks had a little bit of trouble taking Edessa. They were a little slow on that. And then not a lot of attrition coming through Anatolia, which led me to wonder, am I supposed to, as the Seljuks, should I have been trying to do that shadowing effect there? It's tough to do, though, because of these fortifications that the Byzantines have and the Armenians. That kind of protects the Crusader route. Had Edessa fallen and been able to get down here to Ravendell, well, Then there's a temptation to take Antioch, but maybe the better move would be to slide over into Lesser Armenia and then attack next time. Anyway, I'll clean this one up, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing the third one for this right away. It's kind of an interesting one. Fall of the Caliphate. This is going to be Nur al-Din and Saladin, basically dispatching Saladin to take Egypt. And we'll see how that works. It's posed as a struggle between Nur al-Din as the Muslim claimant to Egypt, as it were, and Almaric trying to make a Christian case, which actually, from what I understood, if the Christians had played their cards right, they actually had the advantage on this of gaining Egypt, which would have been a serious coup to turn Egypt and remove the threat from there and anchor the Christian army. It definitely points out kind of the feeling of there should be a campaign game for this. Of course, that would be the one scenario I would play then, but it just feels like, okay, well, now I took all this stuff, and then the next scenario I'm going to play the historical again. That's kind of weird, but I guess it feels the same way with battle scenarios where battles come up kind of one after the other. Hey, I won the last battle, man. I should have better forces. Always kind of a disappointment. Okay, up it goes.